this is Brian Noble. He's a dependable old soul. Well, a man who owns him once said, "I'm going to win 100 races in a year." People scoffed at him, but he did it. Now he wants to take Salford all the way to a grand final. And people are laughing again, but he's not joking. It's Marwan Koukash, and he's talking to Terry O'Connor.
Welcome to Super League Superstars and our guest, Marwan Koukash. Marwan, before we start talking about you as a racehorse owner and Salford Rugby League, I want to take you back to you growing up in Jordan. What was your childhood like?
Well, I was born in Jordan, but I grew up in Palestine, in the West Bank, and just lived a very, very simple life. We lived off the land, and I stayed there, I think for the first 7-8 years of my life, until 1967, when the war broke out and we became a refugee. When I say we, me and mother and brothers and sisters, and we had to move away. And I remember walking for about 3 days to reach safety and security, which is the other side of the River of Jordan.
I read that you actually had to walk for 3 days without food and water.
Absolutely. At the time you just you grab whatever you can and escape the war and the fighting, and you just head for safety.
So you live in this lovely house, but what was actually your home like when you were growing up?
It was a simple existence. Obviously, in the village we were at, we didn't have running water or electricity. The kind of luxuries you take for granted now. And we lived in a one-bedroom house or a one-bedroom home. 8, 9 of us. So
like we see all the children now playing sport over in England, like what was your ambitions and what were your aspirations when you were growing up?
To better myself, and even then, we played the sport, and but obviously we couldn't afford to buy a ball. So at the time, you used to grab hold of an old socks and fill it up with something and play football with it or basketball.
Not rugby?
I didn't know about rugby at the time, mate.
How old were you when you first moved over to England?
I came over when I was, I think, 16, 17 years of age to do my studies. And the very first town I settled in was St. Helens. And I did my A-levels there, and I went to Liverpool while staying in St. Helens. Went to Liverpool and I did my degree, PhD, and stayed on to do teaching for a number of years, and went to the commercial side of the university.
So when you did your PhD, that's where the doctor comes from?
That's right, yeah.
Have you ever had people coming up to you who actually think that you're a GP?
Well, quite often, especially when you are on a flight, or like last week, for example, when I was doing my Twitter evenings, somebody wrote to me, sent me a Twitter, and was genuine, saying to me, "Look, doctor, my wife has had this cold and she can't seem to shake it off, so what's the best thing for it?"
Do you consider yourself as an entrepreneur?
I don't know. I mean, it seems whatever I do gives that meaning.
Well, you left the university, you set up your own business. You into property, obviously you're a racehorse owner, you're on a rugby league club now. So it's all about businesses.
Well, when I left the university, I had a fantastic job at the time, and I'm really going places. And I decided, well, look, enough is enough for working for somebody. I could do this for myself. And obviously I've been successful at it, and very grateful and very pleased that I did leave my comfort zone at the time and take the risk of setting my own business.
So I don't know much about horse racing, but I always remember your face. Whenever we used to watch the TV and the horse racing was on, you'd be there with a number of your winners. Take back to 2007,
yes.
You'd only had one winner. You go forward 5 years and you had 101 winners. That's not a bad effort, that, is it?
No, and I remember in 2012 made a statement early in the season saying, look, I'm going to get 100 winners this year. Getting 100 winners is very, very tough. It's probably a bolder statement than saying I want to win the grand final this year. But nevertheless, that was my ambition and that was my vision, and really worked very, very hard at it. Got involved in placing the horses and got involved with who rode the horses and which tracks they go to, you know. And I remember early in December, we got stuck on 99, and I just needed that extra winner. And I remember having 8-9 successive seconds, and it came down to the wire in December.
Fath Star's alongside the new leader, and Fath Star gets up to win. Ton up for Dr. Koukash.
By getting the 2 winners, I think I became the first individual in British racing history to get 101 winners in a year.
How did you get into horse racing?
It's a similar story to how I got involved in rugby. I went with my bank manager to Haydock, and I loved the atmosphere, and I thought what will make it even more exciting is if we had a horse running. So 2-3 weeks later, without even thinking, I bought a horse and sent it to Haydock, where it was the favorite in the race, and finished last. So it's probably a similar story to how I'm getting myself involved in rugby.
So, tell us how you got involved in rugby.
Flying to Dubai one evening, minding my own business. I happened to sit next to Mr. Nigel Wood, and for the 7-8 hours on the flight, never stopped talking. You know, he really sold me the game to the point where I said to him, look, if a club becomes available, let me know. And subsequently, he contacted me about Salford just before Christmas 2012 it will be, yeah. And without thinking, he came back from Dubai, from my holiday in Dubai, and I remember Nigel escorting me to the meeting with the people that I was taking the club from. And I said to him, Nigel, wait a minute, I don't even know, although I've been once, I honestly don't know how many players in each team, so you better tell me. And Nigel gave me a 30-second crash course in rugby league then.
So 2 conversations got you into horse racing.
And one
got you into rugby league. And obviously you're putting your money behind Salford. What were your first impressions when you went into Salford as a club? From
straight away you get the impression it's a club that's badly run. And as a business organisation, the culture there did stink. And I appreciate that probably had one of the worst teams in the competition. But I remember also being told, with all due respect to London Broncos, that when we played them, London Broncos were supposedly to be the worst team in the competition. And we got hammered that evening at home. And I was standing on the terraces with our fans, and I could see the hurt in their eyes. You know, and I was talking to them, and you know, some of them said to me, "It's going to take us a week or 2 to recover from this." And I promised them, I said, "This won't happen again." I went to the dressing room, and in the dressing room, you could see what was wrong. The culture was totally wrong. I mean, some players were walking around as if they'd won the Super League grand final.
Well, they didn't care.
They didn't care. The coach likewise. And I remember coming out of the dressing room, having said a few words to them, made them know my feelings. And I wouldn't stand for displays like that again. I remember speaking to a reporter, and I said, well, look, what's wrong with this club is the culture. It stinks. And no one is safe. And I reiterated that by saying from the cleaner all the way to the CEO. And that's when, that very evening, I started making the change.
You've always been very open in the press with your comments and what you say. Probably there was a few cynics, Marwan, that when you took over Salford, they were saying, oh, he wants to own the stadium, he wants to buy the stadium, he wants to develop around the area, he wants to build a racehorse. Was it genuinely you got involved because of the rugby league side?
I genuinely, and everybody in racing would tell you that racing costs me an awful lot of money, but I love it as a sport. And now I love the sport, rugby league as a sport. It's not a reason why I got involved because of the ground around or the land around the stadium or the stadium itself. I'm in the sport for my love of the sport. I'm totally addicted to the sport, and I'm in it for the long term. But if in the process, in the future, and I've always made this absolutely clear, I want to build a club that is one of the biggest clubs in the land. And if Marwan Koukash walks away from Salford in 5-10 years' time, because we can't be here forever, and I want the club to survive without me. And if that means developing some land to give the club financial stability after me, why not? I'll do that.
Well, we'll take a short break now, Marwan. Join us in part 2 when we'll be meeting some of Salford's biggest names.